Hi, I'm Jay Eichelberger. We're in Seaside, Florida. So it's a big walkable town. So one of the big things is basically you're going to the beach or you're walking through town, and probably the biggest draw in town is the food. It's front and center. There's a whole stream of Airstreams right on the road, and that's one of the things you see when you're driving down. The restaurants on the other side are all facing the road, so it just becomes this huge strip of just restaurants. It's just all the food. You see all the offerings as soon as you're driving in town before you even park. And so that's a big part of what makes it. You can grab a soft pretzel, grab a crepe, walk around. It's a big part of town. And it's a cool little new urban town where they're very particular about what restaurants are here and that no one competes against each other. And so there's like pickles, they've got burgers and fries and milkshakes. Our place we have a crepe place and a Cuban place. There's barbecue, hot dogs, grilled cheese. They really try to make sure that everything is different from each other, that you have a huge offering throughout the whole town. They basically curated that.
So if I wanted to get to the ocean, how far do I have to go from right where I'm standing to get to the ocean?
Jump off the balcony, and you'll be there. You'll survive. You'll be fine.
There's sand right there.
Run through the dunes, and then you'll be on the beach. Yeah.
We're looking at the beach over there. So we're here in Seaside, Florida. Tell us about your kind of experience here. You kind of grew up here.
Yeah. So I started coming in the late 90s. My family took me here. I was a small child, so I didn't just like jump in the car and drive myself. And so they loved it. I loved it. And then
just a vacation. And
just
stuff.
a vacation. And then they bought a place in I think '99. And we would spend. I would graduate or end school in like May. We'd come down and I'd stay through August every single year. Met a bunch of friends that did the exact same thing. Did tennis camp. I know I don't look like a tennis player, and I'm not, but I went to go play with friends. And so they would do the same things, one from Miami, one from Charleston, one from whatever. And then my parents switched and bought a different house in 2002, and then we just kept doing that. And so I actually saw all these Airstreams get put in, and I always thought it'd be cool to start a business here. But then, went to college and all that kind of stuff. And then me and my wife got married down here, October 22nd, 2016. And that's when we really kind of put the plan together to try to do a business here and do all that. So,
yeah, let's kind of jump into that. Like what, tell everybody about the businesses that you started and why you started them.
So we started Crepes Display in 2018. We had a different idea for kind of a French place with a crepes dessert window. And that's what we pitched to Seaside, but they just wanted a crepe place. And so we figured that out.
Wait, you pitched to Seaside?
Yeah.
What do you mean you pitched to Seaside?
So, they have a whole interview process. They get like 14 different interviews every single year of people trying to get a spot. And so, it's a whole interview thing. They're really interested in you and what you're going to bring to the community and how you're going to live down here and all that kind of stuff. And so, they liked my wife more than me, but they liked me enough to give me the spot.
She's the face of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They liked her a lot. So then, they gave us a spot and they gave us the green light. And so we bought an Airstream. It was like a 1972 trade wind Airstream. And then
for those that don't know what an Airstream is, it's basically like like a small camper trailer
Yes.
built in the 70s.
I was going to say a silver tube, but yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
So, but originally it's a camp trailer
Yeah.
that you guys convert into a food truck, basically.
Yeah, so we went to a guy named Ron, who mostly did food trucks, and he was like, I can do whatever. And the curves actually in Airstreams make a huge problem. He's used to just boxes. And so that took longer than we thought, but he did end up putting in a walk-in cooler on the whole the whole cap of the Airstream is a walk-in cooler, which is awesome. It's the only one in Seaside and people come and try to figure it out. He's like, you should patent this. And I was like, should I? Yeah, because people kept asking about it. So, we got that, and then we dragged it into Seaside and set it up, got it plumbing and electricity and all that. So that's been there since, 2018, which has been awesome. Yeah.
So what's it like actually trying to like drive business like down here? Is it hard or?
No, so it's basically people come here for the beach. They come here for the day. They rent the houses. So people are just wandering around like Disneyland. And actually, there's an open container here. You can actually drink open container anywhere in Seaside because there's a rule if you have a certain amount of leasable land and you're next to a navigable body of water, and as we said before, the ocean's right there. You can just drink alcohol wherever.
except while driving.
Probably not while driving. I'm assuming Disneyland like paid a bunch of money to get that done so that you could just walk around Disneyland with a drink. But it applies to here, and we got the thing. But people just walk around, spend the whole day here. And so if you have good signage and your food looks good, and a lot of people like Nutella crepes, then you're good to go.
So tell me about like because I mean we came in here. I mean, it was really difficult to get an Uber. I haven't seen a McDonald's or anything really. Like, tell me the types of foods that are here.
Yeah, so because the interview process is basically in there so that you don't get too much of the same food. They really want, like, Crepes was there because they wanted a healthier option, and they didn't want any more fried food. They already have a barbecue place. They already have pickles, which is chicken tenders and burgers and all that kind of stuff. And so they basically handpick things that don't have other locations unless they really like you. But no franchises, no anything. They really want like a unique thing of food, and that's what they've got here pretty much.
So there will never, as far as we know, there will never be a McDonald's.
They will not. No.
And it's all locally owned businesses
Yes.
that are that everybody kind of runs and
Yeah.
and all different types of foods.
Yeah, and at most they'll be like, they had a donut place here, $5 bakery. They've got a couple of locations, but it's a family-owned business. So they were like, come on in kind of thing. It was all family-owned places. Amavita's got one other location in Rosemary, but again, they know the owners. They want to know the people. They don't want somebody franchising a restaurant and just bringing it here. That's what they don't want. Yeah.
Interesting. So you started Crepes. Tell us about, you opened a second restaurant. How did you get that opportunity?
So I told them, hey, my mom's Cuban. I know way more about Cuban stuff than crepe stuff and French things. I'd love to talk to you about opening up a Cuban place. And they were like, cool. And then I never heard anything. And then in 2019, Amavita was moving. And so they basically called me. It was like right before Christmas. And they're like, you want to start a restaurant? And I was like, do I have to give you the pitch? And they're like, nope, just...
They called you.
Yeah, they called us.
They're like, remember when you talked about that Cuban place?
Yeah, can you just
remember
do that? Yeah. And so, and we put the plan together really quickly and sent it to them. And since they already knew us, and it was a way easier process. And so, in 2019, we got that.
Which is called?
It's Casino Cubana. And we got that built out. And it's been a huge kitchen. It's been awesome. Moving out of the trailer, actually having space. It's been great. And it's been great for me because it's just actually bringing family recipes to the town. It's something that me and my mom really passionate about, and it was awesome to be able to pull up my abuela's recipes and make it restaurant ready. And a lot of, if not all of the stuff, has at least her influence on all the little different things in there. So for us, it's been a great project. The other cool thing for me is I have seen a lot more Latino families coming into Seaside and eating at our place, and I feel like that's been a huge thing for me, just in town, just bringing some sort of culture to the town, and bringing people in, and the reviews have been awesome, and people are just excited that we're there, and it just, and it's what Seaside wants. They want to break up the town. They want a different offering, and I think that we're bringing that, which has just been great.
Yeah, right after we flew in, that was the first place we went. We ordered so much food, and it was all just so good.
There was not any left.
we
we ordered too much food.
And
ate it all.
Ate it all.
And then got more food.
And then went and got all the crepes. We tried the crepes, and the crepes were awesome too.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of funny how that experience. So one of the things is I don't know. As we talk about Seaside, Florida, I think about busy beaches, a lot of businesses, but everything's very local and pretty small town feel, I would say.
that's what they keep trying to do. The whole thing is like, it's like a new urbanism. They want a big walking area, and they want everyone to know everyone. And that's the big thing of homeowners weekend. Everyone comes down here. You get to meet your neighbors. Every street has a homeowners association, which is really big because you know the president. They're right down the street. It's only like one street with a certain amount of homes. Everyone can talk and how you're going to improve the community. And it's a really awesome thing that everyone kind of gets together. So even though some people rent their houses, there's at least one time a year where everyone gets to meet everyone, which is just awesome.
That's really cool.
And that's a big thing about it. They want it to still feel like a town, not just like a resort or anything like that. They really want it to feel like this is a bunch of people's homes getting together. This is the businesses they care about.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of the merchants own, like Modica's own a place here. A lot of people live here, so the pickles person's right down the road, kind of thing. Yeah, so you just know the people around here.
Obviously, business is going great. You have these two restaurants. Where did the idea of Flipflops come from?
So back when I was in college, I always thought it would be cool if you could get delivered to the beach. And so I was an entrepreneurship major. And so I actually, my final project, the final thing senior year was just build a business plan, see how you're going to do it, just go full out. And so I created something called Dune Delivery. made a whole business plan, got an A, graduated. It was a great time. Great time. Woo! I do have a degree. But then I just put it on the shelf. And then COVID happened. The pandemic.
And that being said, you grew up here, right? Like,
yes, yeah.
You literally every summer you would see people, and like this is something you grew up with. So you had probably been thinking about this for a lot of years.
Oh yeah, and they have usually there's chairs out there. There's the cabana men, and they just put up the chairs. And I always thought like they just delivered food too. That'd be perfect. Mm-hmm. They're already setting up the chairs. They could just deliver food as well. Last year the pandemic happened, and they were really pushing for everyone to go to online ordering. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that a lot of people just didn't even have an online ordering system, or there's still like a system from the 90s that couldn't even support it. Like Pickles was doing phone calls. Like literally they had a phone number on the side of their thing, and because they had no way of doing an online ordering or anything. And so that's when we thought, well, if we could do a delivery system, and it could also be an online ordering system, so you could have everyone on the same thing, we thought that would be great. And then we could spin it into actually delivering to the beach, delivering to the cottages. And through our process, we actually found out, my mom found an old thing in Seaside. It was called the butler service. So back in the 90s, they actually had a cottage delivery thing because there weren't as many people. And you could call up somebody, and they had like a little butler thing, and they would come and deliver your food, almost like room service. And so we were like, well, they've already had this concept before. We can do this again. And then that's when we pursued y'all. We found it. We became best friends. Yeah. Look at us go.
Look at us 6 months later.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about kind of like your discovery phase. Because, I mean, there was the butler service, and there's just so many different like tools and different things. Why didn't you just end up going to a tool like DoorDash or Uber or something else to try and solve the delivery problem?
Yeah,
here?
so there are no drivers. There's nobody. I mean, like you can't get an Uber down here. You can't do a door. I actually applied to Uber Eats when the pandemic started. They didn't get back to me for 30 days and then said, I don't think we'll be a good fit. And I was like, thanks. You could have done that sooner.
Yeah.
But it was basically they had no one to deliver our food.
Yeah.
And so there's no drivers, no anything. And then it was also just for the little town of Seaside, and that's all I really wanted to deal with.
Yeah.
You don't need drivers there. You don't need people waiting in their cars. I mean, you just can walk everywhere. So it's easy to deliver the food. And so for Seaside, it was just going to be way easier to do our own thing than try to do any of those other
But
ones.
you did pursue that, right?
We did.
You tried.
Yeah, we tried, and it just wasn't available.
Yeah.
You can't get an Uber to the airport. You can't get.
No, seriously, it was impossible
Yeah.
for us. We
Yeah.
spent like 2 hours just requesting Ubers and Lyfts and got nothing.
Yeah, no, they're just not here. It's still a taxi town.
Wait, so are you afraid of like Uber or DoorDash coming in now and just kind of like taking over the market, or?
Not really, because I would if I was trying to deliver a lot of restaurants up and down 30A. But we're so focused on just the community, and if we expand this to other communities, it's still going to be community specific.
Yeah.
What a fun word. It's going to be community specific. And so I don't really want to have the drivers. And so if Uber Eats wants to come and set up for pizza down the road and all that kind of stuff, that's fine. But I do think we'll always have faster delivery times for just the actual Seaside or Rosemary or Alice Beach. You just can't be people just on foot, and you don't have to do contract labor because we just can have our own employees and treat them well.
Plus, I mean, you also had to like apply. I don't know. It sounds like there's like a huge community base here, and so really for DoorDash to come in and try and like execute on this market, I feel like would be super hard just in and of itself in general with all the rules and regulations that there are here.
Yeah, and it's hard to. I couldn't imagine trying to. Where are you going to park to get the food? I mean, that's part of the problem. Is like there's nowhere to go. I mean, Great Southern's got a couple spots for like pickup. I don't even know if that exists anymore. That was just during the pandemic where they were to go only. So there's nowhere to park to get the food. There's nowhere to like, stop, and it's just hard. So if you're not doing stuff on foot, I think it's almost impossible.
Yeah.
Which would keep the market yours basically, because Uber, those, I mean, they have their business model kind of proven and forward, but this is almost a completely different service.
Yeah.
Where it's beachside delivery. Now let's talk about the beachside delivery. So explain to us what your vision is and what actually is coming forward.
So we want. The big thing for us is there's usually, right now it's kind of spring break and there's still social distancing, but it's usually a wall of blue chairs. The cabana man basically sets up chairs down the entire beach. And so everyone's just sitting there all day. You rent the chairs, you can come and go as you please. So basically what we want is to be able to deliver food and alcohol. I really think the alcohol is going to be huge, but the food too of our restaurants are all the restaurants in Seaside, because getting up off the beach, leaving all your stuff, especially when you have kids, is a process. And so that's something that we really want to, and I really think that your cooler runs empty, and then you can just order a bunch of alcohol from us. Yeah, because that's the biggest bummer.
Yeah.
So I actually want to ask a question to Austin. Austin, so let's talk about your journey here, right?
Yeah.
Like, tell us about kind of what the process was and kind of who knew who and how did you two meet to really solve this problem?
So you ended up reaching out originally like for this idea to Eric, right?
Yep.
And then Eric reached out to Nick, who then Nick was like, this project is huge, reached out to me. And I feel like we just kind of like jumped on a call and you're just like, hey, we want to do this. This is the problem we're running into. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it, kind of thing. Like it was really just that. Really the least amount of friction I've ever had in terms of actually like talking with a potential client. And we just started running with it. At first, the technical portion of it was not defined well. I think our whole engineering team didn't realize how many problems that we were gonna have to solve because you guys are offering a really unique service.
Yeah.
Like DoorDash is cool. Like, yeah, you can order food, but when you're here with a family, when do 4 people want to eat from the same restaurant?
Yeah.
And when you guys came in, you're like, our biggest difference between us and everyone else is not that we're just delivering food, but we're allowing families to order from multiple restaurants and we're getting it all and we're bringing it to you on the beach. And it's just a whole different level of convenience. And so I think that was the biggest reason that we were on board. Because, I mean, our entire goal at Strides is to work with companies that are actually going to offer something valuable so they get a product that's used. And I think when you came in and mentioned that, like, that was a huge problem. And I thought, that's a great solution for it.
Yeah.
So
I did a delivery yesterday that was half crepes and half Casino Cabana, so it is functioning and working.
But there was so many problems with that.
That's what I was gonna say.
So to kind of really jump into like the engineering portion of it, it is like DoorDash at this point seems not it's obviously a very complex application and you can do a lot of different things in it. But the thing is with this specific platform, having to be able to order from multiple restaurants, pay different restaurants out, divvy up taxes, divvy up tips. Like there's just an extra layer of code that's got to be put into every single thing. And it's just super complex. Our backend engineer was just like, he's like, oh my gosh. So, and we originally built it out with one restaurant.
Yeah.
No, so we're like, okay, step 1 is to just do one-on-one orders. And we're like, cool, hey guy, we need you to go make this work for 2 restaurants. And he's like, okay, goes in. 5 hours later, dude, you have no idea how complex this is because you've got to now, to not really dive into the technical weeds, but it's like you have 2 separate orders. You've got to combine them into one. You've still got to show how much each restaurant paid. You've got to correctly pay that out. You've got to correctly calculate taxes. And that was the next big problem that we ran into. So there was multi-restaurant orders. Then there was taxes. And Seaside, Florida has the dumbest tax table I've ever seen.
The whole world is dumb. I remember going on conversations because it depends on the amount. Like the taxable percentage depends on the amount of the order.
There's a table.
There's a table. And guess what? There's not a lot of APIs for that table.
No.
No,
We
we literally jumped on like 3 different software solutions, and literally the minimum payment to perform like this operation was like $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
Like just it's crazy. And
which are things you guys just didn't anticipate, right?
No,
neither of you guys had really thought that this would be an issue or a problem, right?
I mean, we kind of knew it was going to be a problem, but we didn't realize how big of a problem it was going to turn into.
Yeah. And then bottled water is, you can't do sales tax on bottled water.
Yeah, and then there were weird things. It's like you can't tax bottled water, and then you guys have special fees down here to support whatever. And
we have an A&E fee for 2% on every single order that they have to be able to opt out legally.
Yeah. And so we're like...
So you got to tie that into the
It can't be required. Yeah.
So it's just a lot of custom stuff. It would have been something as simple as like, hey, here's your order, you've got to deliver it. I think that's a really simple process. But when you have, hey, you've got to do an order, and you've got to update the user's location at the exact same time so they can know exactly where they can walk up to deliver the food on the beach. That was a whole problem of itself. Adding in a second restaurant to order from, creating the flexibility for people to add multiple different fees on top of that is just a lot of technical work. And I mean, we've got technically 3 iOS apps, 3 Android apps, and a whole web platform that you guys are using to operate this system. huge.
So Jay, obviously we just went over a lot of technical problems, which probably went over my head for sure.
Definitely. I just kept asking stuff.
I was like, no, just do it.
Yeah.
But you obviously ran into some more of like business problems, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about like, obviously you have a whole new training process, and there's a lot of different problems that you ran into as a business owner.
Yeah, so the big thing for us was kitchens get like just busy, and it's a mess. And so currently we use a POS system called Toast, and we've got all these screens, and that's where usually like the order comes in through. But that just seemed like, again, I don't know the technical stuff, but that seemed even more of a nightmare to be like, do all of that and then also make it integrate with this specific POS system that only we use.
Yeah.
So we tried to figure out the fastest way so that we could just set something up. And what we figured out was if you just had a printer, so a tablet that showed the order and then a printer that would print the order, almost every restaurant still has the space for paper tickets. Just in case the system goes down and all the stuff, Toast will still print out tickets that we can just put up there if you need it. And we've had to do it before if the internet goes down. So the easiest way for us to solve it, and the easiest way we could bring it to any restaurant, no matter what POS system they had, was you just had the tablet and then the paper ticket would print, and then every kitchen could basically incorporate that.
So every kitchen can handle that
model. Yes, and that was the big thing for us because I mean, we use Toast. I know another restaurant group here uses Toast, but I don't even know what everyone else uses. I have zero clue. Some people use Square, some people use Clover, some people use. I mean, there's just so many different ones. Yeah.
Systems.
And so there was just no way that we were going to integrate with all of that, nor would I want to spend the time and money to figure out how to do that. Yeah. Sure we could, but you know. Yeah,
and ironically, that was the easiest technical problem to solve. We had that working in like a week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but that was our biggest concern because otherwise no one's going to do it if it's just going to be hard or if it's only on a tablet in the corner of the restaurant. No one's ever going to see the orders.
Yep.
It's never going to make it to the kitchen. And so that was our biggest thing, is trying to figure that out.
So basically the order will come in, you need it to print out, and it'll actually print out a physical order, and then we know there's an order.
And then somebody just needs to run that to there's all these little things you can stick it up like an old school diner.
Yeah.
And we still have all of those.
Yep.
And so that's where, so we figured that out, got the printers, and it's working. It was the best solution for the problem.
So one thing that's been super interesting is it's not super common for like a restaurant just to go build like their app, like a mobile application to handle like delivery and stuff. And I think you're offering like a different solution because it's not just your guys' restaurant. Have you found any types of like challenges trying to like bring people on the platform? Let's talk about that because I feel like that's a core like piece to your whole business model.
Yeah, so we just are currently onboarding our first people to take the plunge with us.
Yeah.
It's a hot dog place, a pickles, a burger, chicken tender place. I don't know what chicken tender is always the one I think of, but because I like the chicken tenders. And then a shrimp shack. So it's like oysters and their lobster roll is really good. So the big thing for us is people's biggest pushback is kind of what I was talking about before, where the grilled cheese place has a line 45 minutes deep every single day, all day long until they close. And so they already have usually have an online ordering system, and they're like, we're going to add another thing. And that's the biggest hurdle. And so we're showing that we can do it and we can make it work in our kitchen. This first onboarding is really big because we're starting with a hot dog place. We're starting small because that's easy. I mean, it's also in a Airstream. It's a small trailer. They can easily see it print, and they're going to see how that works. And then we're going to slowly add the other ones. Pickles is the nightmare zone because they're as busy as we are, and it's a full kitchen. And so figuring out how we're going to incorporate that. But the biggest thing is stuff works now. Why add something else?
And I think as they see more business opportunities are going to start opening up for these restaurants that are using it, and they're just like, we have to move to it.
Yeah.
Right? It's all about the pivot.
Yeah,
100%.
And if you're missing out on sales at the beach, it's just proving proof of concept. Which is huge for us. Yeah.
So most people think that DoorDash and Uber are helping the restaurants, but really from the restaurant's point of view, they actually know that it's probably not. They might even be just breaking even with the fees that they have. How do you guys feel that you're different?
I can't imagine trying to be DoorDash and run a national brand with so many different restaurants and so many different things. For us, it's just
and items.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane. For us, it's a small town community. I can knock on anyone's door if they're having a problem. And talk to them. And we're not trying to take a huge percentage. We're not trying to strong arm people into using it. For us, it's just really like the nice part for us is that we already have 2 restaurants, so we're already adding value to the places we already have, and so we can already show the value that we're adding. And instead of us coming and knocking on your door and being like, give us some of your sales and we'll do something, I promise. And so for us, it's just we're already boosting our sales. And so we're just trying to help the rest of the town do the same. And I think there's a huge market for the beach, and we've seen it before. And I think that the cottages, I mean, rainy day like this, people don't want to wander out. I've seen it. People will sit in that grilled cheese line for 40 minutes. Yeah.
But if I can sit in my cottage and get that grilled cheese, why wouldn't I?
Exactly. And we're just trying to help the town, basically.
The other thing that I think that you guys have an advantage of is it's so small. You're not going to get your food an hour later after it's made, right?
Yeah.
Like if I can get a grilled cheese sandwich, I know it's only, half a block that way?
Yep.
Yeah, seriously.
Right? And so and then we're surrounded by, so I think that there's also a big value prop is like, listen, we're just trying to cover this spot right here, which is not going to hurt my quality of food to people because it gets to them so quick, right?
Yeah, and it's just it's people on foot, it's people on bikes, and then we have a super cool golf cart. Looks like a 57 Chevy.
Yeah, will you send us some of those pictures? So
absolutely.
We'll throw it up right now so you guys can see this.
Yeah.
It's an old Bel Air, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks fantastic, and so we'll deliver in that too. But yeah, you don't have to go far, so the food's not going to get cold. Mm-hmm. You don't have to worry about driving anywhere, and that's
just sit on the beach and get full.
And drink alcohol.
Eat
Cuban sandwiches. You know what you all want?
One more time, another plug. The Cuban sandwiches were incredible.
Yeah, we're proud of that one. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you guys are both laughing.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about this question here.
It's a freaking nightmare.
So the first time you guys meet, hey, I got this idea. Austin, you're probably like, okay, that seems like a cool idea.
Oh yeah, it's simple.
That's easy.
Oh, we'll be done. Yeah, a couple month or two.
Yeah, Jay, you're like, yeah, this seems
simple. Get food, deliver food.
Yeah.
Just write the words.
What happened? What happened? So this project was like, hey, I think this is something simple, but the scope of the project just went huge for both, right? Yeah. For the size of the app, the different apps that we built. I'm sure budgets, like obviously, were like conversations. So let's talk about how those conversations happened and kind of what was the attitude going in on that. So let's start with you, Austin. Let's talk about your first.
Yeah.
We talked about like the technical things, but let's just talk about the complications as a scope of how big this project continued to get. Did you know it was going to be this big?
No. So originally what ended up happening is going into this, we thought it was going to be something as simple as, you've got a person's location and you just got to show it on a map and deliver it, and they've just got to order some food. But what we didn't understand, I would say the two most complicated things, really the three most complicated things that we ended up putting into this app version 1 that just really like blew us up from a technical standpoint was 1, multi-restaurant orders, 2, the way that menu items are set up, and 3 were taxes. So I want to jump into the second one because I've already talked about how hard it was to build multi-restaurant orders. But the thing is with your bowl specifically, we had to build something that was just as customizable or more customizable than what Shopify does. So if you've ever worked with Shopify, you have all these different variations, you have all these options, and you've got to be able to calculate price. Shopify actually only limits you to 100 variations, so everybody knows. So we were trying to solve a problem that isn't necessarily something that Shopify just said, screw it, but was super complex. Like they're not even offering that to people. Ironically, one of the developers who worked for us ended up getting hired at Shopify. So that was
they're like, we've been trying to solve this forever. We can hire you and figure it out.
So and it was super funny because now, so the way that it works out is you've got a menu item, and this menu item can have a ton of different variations, options, and add-ons. And so we had to come up with a way that wasn't exponentially growing to have different options for each menu item. So they could select different options, they could select different variations, and basically customize the entire order. And that, from like a technical standpoint, was super tough problem to crack.
Yeah, I still remember the Zoom call because you showed us the menu thing, and then my dad was like, all right, we'll see, if we can break it with the testing. And then I immediately was like, I've already broken it. We have bowls. And I was like, then every single item is like customizable and all that kind of stuff. And so we had to like break that down. And I was like, the sandwiches were easy because you showed us with the sandwiches. And it's just basically, do you want mustard or not? And then I was like, yeah, but we've got this other item. And it's kind of our main thing. It's bowls. And they need to pick everything. Yeah.
I would say to this day, with our developers, if I were to go up to each of them and I'd ask them to tell me what is the difference between a variation, option, and add-on, they'd probably give me a blank stare for like 30 minutes because it's seriously just like a really hard thing to wrap your head around. And on your end, to actually go in and train businesses how to use this software, I think it's going to be pretty tough just because of how flexible and customizable your product actually is.
Yeah.
And so
which by the way, isn't necessarily a problem that only your restaurant's going to have, right? This is something that we have to solve for everybody when the time comes.
And that's why it blew up from a technical standpoint, because it's like, we're not trying to just solve a problem for Cocina Cubana. We're trying to solve a problem so when any restaurants comes to your platform, they're going to be able to go in and add their menu without problems.
Yeah.
And to create something so dynamic is challenging.
Basically, Austin, you had to, it's not like we're trying to solve one problem. And when we build as a development agency, we have to build in a mindset of like being able to add all the restaurants with the same problems, right? So it's not like, hey, let's just build this menu. It's not like just normal online app. It's really like, how do we continue to get everybody to be able to online their order and their menu within that, which was a huge challenge.
Yeah. Right? I mean, for most people, like 90% of people that would come up to us, they're, at least for what you guys are doing, like businesses come to us and ask us to build processes to basically streamline their process. And usually it's super easy because it's super tailored to them. You could have just been like, here's our menu. We could have hard-coded all that and be done. But in this case, like we have to build something that's flexible for every single restaurant that comes in and doesn't hurt us when we try to build new things into it. Or really step two, which I'll kind of let you talk to this, is what's going to happen when we try to add restaurants in Rosemary or I don't know, Miami, Florida when we get that far, right? So it's got to be customizable for everybody who's going onto the platform.
And you have to build with that mindset, which is something that's very unique. Like you can have people solve this problem for your restaurant, your two restaurants, but that's not the vision, right? And that's something that you guys had expressed early, like, hey, we don't want this problem solved for us. We need it solved and built in a way that can scale.
Because otherwise we didn't have a business. I mean, just adding a few more sales to our two restaurants was not going to make back the money. It was adding the town. But now it works. I was actually looking at the hot dog menu, and they have like a customizable hot dog with different toppings. I was like, I can do that.
If you only knew how hard that was. So Jay,
I can hit the buttons.
Jay, I want to talk about you when you met with Austin first time. You gave him the idea. Obviously, you had no idea. And everything he's saying is over my head too. Like I don't I understand what needs to be done. I don't understand how to do it, right? Because I'm not a developer as well. But at the same time, like you guys probably went forward with like, hey, this is a problem. Here is the solution. Let's talk about like what your guys' process was like. Obviously, like we'll bring it out. Budgets probably changed throughout because of how complicated the app went. Let's talk about the communication between the developers and stuff like that, and how that was.
I think the hardest part, because the budget did, double, I think. Yeah, at least.
We'll say that for video's sake.
Double. But I think the hard part for me, but I kind of understood it, but I don't really know anything technical, is that there was like weeks where there was nothing you could really show us, because it's all back-end stuff. Yep. And you're basically like, I can show you the code, but you're going to go, neat. Like, what does it do? And there was just a lot of time that needed to be spent working on the back end. And so there was a few weeks where the Zoom call was like, here's the renderings of what it's going to look like when it finally actually goes. And so I think that was hard, just kind of putting the faith that eventually it's all going to come togetger. But I knew we were going to get something, and we ended up with something amazing. So,
which you would be surprised how many people we talk to that don't get anything.
no, seriously. Oh, and that was like I did that like third call, and I was like, hey, just so you guys know, like, it's just the back end piece takes a super long time to develop out. Like here's like, and we were trying to be proactive. Like, hey, this is the shell for this screen. Like here's it kind of like working. We're still building the back end. And I'm like, seriously, like this we're 90% of the way there. It's just this last 10% is gonna put everything together. I'm like, just keep on with me.
Hang in there with me.
I was like, hang in there. And finally, like we did. And I remember you guys going and demoing it the first day, and you're like, wow, there's a lot of bugs, but it works.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked to a client the other day who paid, what was it, like $40,000, and they never even delivered anything, iterations.
Oh, they're like in a whole like lawsuit because they literally just didn't get anything.
Yeah, like it just happens all the time. And so, obviously, communication was, how often did you guys talk?
Every week. Every Thursday, I think.
Yep, every Thursday.
So you guys had a running meeting every Thursday.
Yes.
And did you ever work with any other developer?
No.
You are so lucky.
Yeah. we just got on a meeting who went through 40 developers trying to get a problem solved.
Yeah, we're loyal people. We found our people, and we stuck with it.
Well, and I think one of the things is that when it comes to development, like communication is super, super important, right? Because not only from Austin communicating to you what's being done, but like as a client, you really have to tell us what needs to be happening, right? Like I don't understand the technical aspect for you, but if you can explain and continue to communicate, like this app wasn't what you guys thought from the beginning, but as you built it, it probably changed quite a bit, and like what it could do and that, right?
And it became what we wanted at the end. I mean, we didn't think it was going to take 2 apps and a web service, but it did. It did exactly what we wanted to do in the end, and so that's what it ended up taking. So
let's talk about some of the frustrations, right? As a business owner who, like I would say that you're probably a more experienced business owner than some of the ones we've worked with in the past. But let's just talk about what frustrations you had, and kind of how, whether it's time or budget, and how we kind of overcame those, and what your thought process was.
yeah, I mean, budget was a big thing for us, but eventually, because the weekly calls really helped, and then eventually you started breaking down the hourly, what we've been working on, had a whole spreadsheet. We loved the spreadsheets.
Auditing all the way.
Yeah.
I color coded all those. Just so you know. So,
Like, you did a great job.
So.
And that helped a bunch. So we knew exactly what was getting worked on. And then it's kind of like what we were talking about, like the last 10%. It was like an iceberg. Like we could see all the top, low, what it's going to look like. And then there was just so much in the back end. But when I've spent enough time on Reddit and like fun programmer humor stuff, and like I don't know any of it, but I'll laugh with them.
But you have an idea, right?
So I had an idea that like projects like this will tend to do this, and there's a lot of stuff you got to do before anything even works. And I did, at least I went to one, because I was entrepreneurship and psychology was my double major, and I actually did. I thought it was a class about like how apps affect like people and all that kind of thing. That's what I read it as. It was not that at all. And I got there and I was like, I guess this is what I'm taking now. It was a joint psychology and computer science thing where you actually had to build an app. And then the psychology part of it was I was supposed to basically do the testing for it and the QA and get other people to test it and build basically the surveys of like, what did you think about the app? So my job was way easier than theirs, which was like build the app. And so I remember them actually having to put all that together. It was basically an app to try to make scheduling at Notre Dame better because it was a nightmare zone.
Oh
and
my God, I hate every time anybody comes to me and like, look, can we build a scheduling app?
Exactly, yeah. And so it was basically trying to like get your classes and all that kind of thing. And so they built the whole thing, and I just did the surveys and made my friends.
But you had some experience with them, watching them build an app.
And I saw like it took a lot of time before I could even send anything to my friends and bribe them with shots in order to try this app. and
Good friend.
And so, but it took a while before I had anything to show to test them. And so that helped me at least conceptualize. I knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And I knew as long as stuff was working on this kind of thing, and I was watching them go. And we also had weekly meetings, but I just sat there and kind of twirled my thumbs because psychology wasn't helping them build the app at all. Yeah.
But it's nice to know, like, just because you're not seeing things being done, things were being done, and that you felt like that was communicated to you pretty well.
Yeah.
And if let's say you, what advice do you have to like a business owner or someone who maybe doesn't have a technical background but is looking to do that? Like, tell us some good advice you'd give them.
I think setting hard limits on budgets, and what I don't think we did a good job of saying what was extremely important and what would be nice to have. Yeah. We kind of went into it and our budget was just like, we want all these things and we don't care what it takes. That's kind of what we communicated. I think if somebody was doing an app right now, I think the big thing is, what do you need? Like if we had talked more about how much of a pain the two ordering thing, I think we would have maybe gone in different directions. Awesome, we have it now and it's being used right now, but I don't think we asked enough, like how much is this actually going to take? Yeah. And so if we had really, this is what we need, these are top priorities, these would be nice to have kind of thing.
Which is really interesting because now that's like one of our first things we do now with clients to make sure it's like, hey, what are your needs to haves?
Yeah.
Give us a list of your need to haves. Give us your list of nice to haves. Give us what you think version 1 should look like. And then let's have a budget and let's see how many of these need to haves we can get within that budget. And then we'll present to you, if we were over those, then let's start talking about the nice to haves.
Yeah.
And start adding those in, right?
Ironically, we don't even move forward in our discovery process without a budget anymore.
Yeah.
Just because
Like a hard budget.
yeah, it's just because that's what happens. Like
Yeah.
it just comes to like, let's add this, and it's like, cool, but from a foundational standpoint, it's like as soon as you have to start making these foundational changes, it's like, dude, I've got to spend like, a couple of days refactoring this whole thing just to put this new system in place to try and hit that feature. And foundational changes just always increase budgets.
Well, let's talk about your experience as the developer. Like, it's probably not a fun conversation to be like, oh man, like this is way bigger than I thought.
I could always see it in your face.
I was gonna say,
I was always like,
this is not a good call.
I was like, this is gonna be fun.
No, literally, I'm just like, oh shit, here we go.
Jay, I don't know if you know this, but how many hours do you say we would probably role play conversations, or like how we would be like, okay, what do we want?
Who played me?
Nice. No, yeah. And I feel like I did a good job now. Yeah. But no, like we would just basically one of the things is like. And Austin, and something that we always talk about is like, hey, before we actually do anything, we want to present you with options. Option A, B, and C. This is what we think option A, B, and C is going to cost. Which ones do you want? And a lot of times the answer was like all of them. Yeah. Right?
That's typically how it is.
Like, let's not do them. But like, Austin, let's talk about your experience on having those conversations. Like, probably not fun.
No, it's super funny because it's like, it's not fun, but actually like I thrive in those conversations. Like and not because like I'm excited for like conflict, but I'm excited to reach a solution that makes everybody happy. Yeah. So I think that's like one big difference. Like, and why I say it's like lucky you didn't work with a lot of developers is because like when we decide to actually build a relationship with you, it's like we're not just here to build like your product. Like we're here to do like what's best for your company because your success is our success. If this goes and blows up, like obviously like we had a lot to do with that. Like we built the entire platform. And so it's like, I'm just as invested in you guys to finish the product as you are invested in me to make sure it gets across the finish line. And so going into every conversation, it was never like, oh man, like you've just got to pay me like that. That's whatever. It's like, what can we do to like really make sure we get it across the finish line? How, like literally it's like with you, it's like, how can I get off the phone and make sure you're happy? Like what, and that's what's important to me is I think relationships are important. I care about every single person, every single product. And the end goal is always like, how can we get off this conversation and like feel, maybe not like jump up and down great, but feel good, right? Definitely not sad or frustrated.
Well, and I don't know how many conversations, we've never had a conversation be like, oh, how can we push that budget? It was more like, how do we make this less? What can we do to make this less? Like, 'cause that's, I mean, obviously we want to say like budgets are super important, but like constant communication, super important. And it's funny you said I could see it in his face.
Yeah.
I could see it in his face.
But it was never like, I was just kind of like, because I always knew we were going to end it with a path forward. I was never worried about like the whole thing getting blown up. So to me, I agreed with you. We're going to figure it out. We're going to see where we're going to need to move forward. What can we cut? Get back to the needs. And that's what, as Austin going to say before, I don't think we did a good job of the difference between needs and nice to have. Everything for us, like you were saying, were needs. And we were kind of in the point where like, I think we could just do that. Get the needs.
Well, why not? Just do it. Okay, I don't care. Just do it.
Exactly. Because like we were fortunate enough that the budget wasn't a huge concern of ours. Like we had the funds and capitalization in order to like get what we wanted. Yeah. And that's what we were able to have. But it's still, that was something we could have gotten a little bit, our heads around a little bit more.
Hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
Let's talk about where is Flipflops now, and what is the plan as a business owner? What's the rollout? Do you guys have like marketing plans? Like, kind of what's the direction? Where's Flipflops going from here?
So they're up and running at our 2 restaurants. Okay. We're at it. We're going to add the next 3. We are going to do a big marketing.
Like you did a delivery yesterday.
I did a delivery yesterday in the rain to some kids. They tipped me $15. So I guess that was great.
So if you're listening, come be a delivery.
Yeah, and just see this mug. So we have them up and running. It's going well so far. We're going to add other things. We're going to try to get added into the rental program. So when you rent a house here, they give you a little packet, a folder of this is stuff in Seaside, this is stuff in whatever. And so we want to basically be like, if you don't want to leave the house and just stay where you spent all the money, you can just come to us and get Flipflops. So that's a big thing for us. My wife runs all of the social media. So she added to the websites, did Instagram and Twitter. We don't do Twitter, I don't think.
That's cool.
But Instagram and Facebook are big, and we kind of did a different product before this, and it's scary how targeted those ads can be. I mean, you can find the people right here, get it to their phones, and all that stuff.
You can tell what they're wearing.
Exactly.
Hey, I like your shirt today. You look like you could use a hot dog. By what you're wearing.
Yeah. She showed me, like, it's crazy how targeted you can get those things. So, big social media campaign. And then after this, if we get the restaurants here, there's a whole road here. It's called 30A. And you'll see the bumper stickers, even like in Atlanta, all throughout the South. And there's all little pocket communities, kind of like Seaside. So there's Alice Beach, which is an all-white town. It's kind of weird. I highly recommend driving there, but like it's these big courtyards. They have an aesthetic. It's really interesting. But yeah, everything's white there. And then there's Rosemary that's kind of like this, but they built it almost like a European town. Like they have like cobble street roads.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and like they're real high, and it looks like you're just walking through like a European town. That's how the whole place feels. And so
almost like themed type. Different themes have different cities. Yeah.
Yeah, so they basically every single town like made their mark and all that, and then Blue Mountain that way is basically where locals live. Grayton and local people who have lived there for years are in like Grayton and Blue Mountain. So the big thing after we get a handle here is making flip-flops specific for those towns. We don't want to make a seaside flip-flop for there. We want their own kind of feel. They all have their own kind of theme. They all have their own community. And so, but the big thing is they all need delivery. They all need everyone needs that for the house, and everyone's got different things going on. And so, some of the beaches are further away. Watercolor right next to us is huge. It goes way back, almost to the highway. There's so many homes there, and so that would be another great place to be able to deliver food. Eventually, we're going to need the golf cart for that. But yeah,
that will be golf cart.
That will be golf cart. Yeah. So, cool. But there's a bunch of communities down here, and that's where we'd head.
So, for our listeners, if you're listening,
which you are,
you're listening. I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
Basically, it comes down to come visiting, and if you're looking for food, Flipflops is the app to be.
Yeah.
You don't even have to leave the beach if you don't want to. You can literally, again, sit on the beach, order food, order beers, order drinks, and it'll be brought right to you. And that is active right now.
It is. It'll be brought to you by me.
Brought to you by me.
Yeah, that's
so get an autograph.
Yeah. It won't last forever. But yeah, we are gonna. Yeah, we need to hire more people. That's a big thing.
Right now, it's kind of beta testing. Still,
exactly.
I would still
and
say.
So it's still fine. It's just me and my dad and Z, my wife, and that's people delivering. But we are gonna. The big thing for us is we didn't want to do contract labor. We do want to hire people.
Yep. So you want W-2 like salaried employees.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's important to us, especially a lot of the controversies that Uber and DoorDash have gotten into with not treating contract labor well and all that. So we really wanted to. That's a big thing for us. Is we really want to treat our employees well. We've been ahead of the curve with pay. Florida's finally bumping up the minimum wage, which has been nice, but we've been trying to surpass that for a long time now. Yeah. And so that's what we want to do for our Flipflops employees too. Cool. So it's important to us.